Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Tristan.
We're from 1300 Web Pro. Last weekend you would have heard a lot about WannaCry, the latest malware CryptoLocker virus to hit the internet. You probably heard about it in the context of the NHS in the UK, many other big organizations getting locked, their files locked. But we wanted to talk to you today about what it means for you as a small business owner here in Toowoomba. So Tristan is one of our highly skilled engineers. Tristan, why don't you start by explaining what ransomware is?
Yep, so ransomware is a newer type of malware that gets onto your PC, locks up, encrypts all your files, and then basically demands a ransom for the key that unlocks them.
Okay, and just to back up, malware, is that the same as a virus?
Generally, yes, but a virus is a subset of malware, so malware is the encompassing term, and inside that there's viruses, worms, and crypto lockers.
Right. So Cryptovirus has been around for many, many months, if not years. In fact, we had a major client in Brisbane, over 100 seats, that we had to help through 3 days of pain to get their data back. Why was this weekend so notable?
So first off, it's that it hit a lot of big targets. I mean, in the past couple of years, it's been more the small businesses and the old hospital here and there. But this time it's hit the NHS and some major ISPs in England, in Europe, and also it's a new variant of ransomware. So it has a worm built in, so it can, once it's in the host, it then looks for other hosts to replicate and move out.
Okay, so once it's inside the network, it does a better job of getting around to other computers on the network.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, okay. So instead of previously, if someone at the NHS had clicked a link, maybe their desktop computer was affected, maybe even some shared files, but not necessarily hundreds and hundreds of computers.
Yep.
Okay. I guess the first question is going to come to mind from our viewers is, this is scary, what do I do to protect myself?
Yep, so the very first thing is to make sure you and your staff don't click on any links and don't open any attachments from sources that you don't know.
So that could be, just to clarify, attachments attached to an email or even a link in an email. Both of those are potential threat vectors.
Correct, and even SMS in some cases.
Okay.
The next thing you should do is make sure that all your individual PCs have some form of protection. The default that comes with Windows 10, Microsoft Defender, is a very good product, but you should also think about adding extra protection like WebRoot or one of the many other providers.
Which aren't particularly expensive usually.
No, and they can add an extra amount of peace of mind.
And particularly it's worth noting that some of the older variants of Windows, particularly XP, I think it's safe to say if you're running XP, go and push the power button and don't turn it back on, ever. Ever. Fair to say?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, XP is end of life. You should not be running XP.
Yep. So antivirus, educate your staff on clicking links, and opening attachments on emails, SMSs. What other threat vectors do we need to be aware of?
You should also look at gateway protection. So this is the box that sits between your computer and the internet and connects via your ISP. So you should, instead of the $70 router that you might typically be using, you should look at a more expensive and more fully featured one.
Yeah, particularly in a business context. Maybe not for home. You can wear a bit of risk, but certainly in a business context, spending $1,000 on a good gateway, good gateway threat protection device could save a lot of pain down the track. So certainly talk to your IT people about the likes of Cisco, WatchGuard, Juniper, SonicWall, and the host of other threat protection devices that are available. Yep. So we've added a third. We've got email, education of staff, gateway.
Probably one of the biggest things that we discovered just recently is you need to make sure that remote desktop is off.
Yeah, so if you're at home and you can click an icon to get into your work computer, there is a very real possibility that is potentially opening you up to CryptoLocker. And in fact, the client of 100 seats that I talked about, that's exactly how they got in. So really quiz your IT provider on how they're providing remote access, if indeed you have remote access. We would certainly recommend the use of a virtual private network or a VPN, which requires sort of a double login to access your work resources if you're going to be working from home.
Yep.
Finally, I think the other one we've all heard is someone from India. I'm calling to help you with your computer.
Yep, Microsoft do not call you. So yeah, if you get a call from Microsoft or Telstra, it is highly likely to be a scam, and they're probably best, they're going to make your computer not work. At worst, they're going to install ransomware and hold you ransom.
Okay, so hypothetically, someone has done a couple of those things, but they've missed out a critical one, like our client, remote access, someone's caught in, encrypted all their files. What do? What's step one if one of these businesses in Toowoomba is subject to ransomware?
So step one is, particularly if it's the ransomware is in progress, is to turn off and unplug the affected computer. The next step is, hopefully you've done this before, is to get your backups and start thinking about restoring from them. So it's important to always test your backups before you need them, and this is one of those cases where putting in the effort early really pays off.
Yeah, so it's also really a great story, maybe not for our client, but worth sharing, that they actually had online backups. So they had a whole complicated backup system that was operating on their servers, and that was encrypted. So it was only very good luck that they had a second backup, which was off-site, offline, physically unplugged from the internet. That's what saved their bacon on this occasion. So with backups, Tristan, we often talk about the 3-2-1 principle, which is 3 copies in total, 2 of them on-site. So I've got potentially my USB hard disk and 1 being copied to a NAS box or something like that, and then 1 off-site, disconnected, air-gapped, off-site. So if you're doing the 3-2-1 backup principle, 2 copies on-site, 1 copy off-site, hopefully your IT person can respond to the crypto issue by just restoring the files, and you don't have to do any deals with any Russians.
Yep, that's always a good strategy.
And Tristan, worst case scenario, someone thinks they're being backed up, their IT provider assures them they're being backed up, IT provider comes on site to deal with crypto, the backup hasn't been running in a month. What are their options?
You may have to consider paying the ransom. I mean, a lot of these schemes have been running for some time, so some schemes are more reliable than others, but you know, it's paying money to criminals.
One last trick, I think they're also advising whether you pay it or whether you don't pay it, even if you end up being able to restore. The advice that I've been reading is to keep the encrypted files in case the encryption algorithms, the encryption keys are leaked. So the encryption that's being used is so advanced that all the supercomputers in the world couldn't decrypt it, but they still have to have the keys to provide you after the fact if you pay them the ransom. So what's happened in some occasions is other hackers, what they call white hat hackers, or hackers for good purposes, have hacked into the ransomware people, stolen the keys and given them back to the world. So I guess the point being, even if you think all is lost, it's worth keeping a copy of the encrypted files, because there's a possibility that down the track, whether that be weeks or months, that the ability to decrypt those files will actually come about.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. I mean, a number of crypto locker schemes have fallen apart simply because white hats have been able to decode the keys.
So again, key takeaways, I can't stress enough, education. My wife last night sent me an SMS, said, is this legit? It was not from NAB. I mean, you got to beat it into your staff, and complacency is also not something that one can afford these days. You got to have your backups. You got to spend the money on those threat protections, etc., etc.
Yep.
Well, best of luck in this dangerous cyber world we live in these days. If you want to talk about fun stuff like building websites and digital marketing, call us at 1300 Web Pro.